It is the 31st of the 8th 2025 race day, Dutch Grand Prix, 8th 2025 race day, Dutch Grand Prix, round 15 at Zandvoort. Oh, the humanity. That qualifying, though, was techie. We'll talk about why Oscar Piastri might be the one of the two McLaren peddlers to have been the benefactor of fortuitous circumstance. For sometimes fortune favours the brave. So too, we'll talk about Toto Wolff and George and Maximilian. We'll talk about the interaction between Lando and Oscar and Max at the post-quali presser. And we'll talk about Yuki Tsunoda because Helmut Marko is now setting objectives in real time. What he'll need to do to remain teammate of Maximilian Verstappen going into next year. It's techier than techie things. In the first instance, however, let's talk about Isaac Hadjar. P4, what are we doing here? And zero airtime. What are we doing? And again, we have this conversation under the broad umbrella heading of Sky F1 being an SH1T show on a couple different counts. In fact, it's not just Sky F1. Let me not victimize them. That would be a low-hanging journalistic trope. Is the broadcast on the whole? Your boy was travelling back and forth, going back up to Birmingham yesterday, and I was forced to listen to the radio. Whatever is that? They were rubbish. No times, no context, no nothing. I was fuming. I was like, if ever there were a stream or a broadcast that I could listen to that gave the detail and spoke to the times and the real rich tapestry of qualifying in real time. No flipping chat. And it's not good enough, chat. It's not good enough, especially when you hear Jacques Villeneuve say something as rogue as they should get rid of the wing mirrors, because the drivers use them to defend. What are you talking about, Jacques Villeneuve? Get rid of him. There is a difference between Jacques Villeneuve, a meaty F1 broadcaster at best / colour commentator, and Nico Rosberg, who is one of the goatee ones. There is a difference, therefore, between analysis and insight. Jacques Villeneuve just out there shooting randomly, throwing the commentary dartboards at the dart, and I don't think that's good enough. I don't know how many millions or hundreds of thousands they're playing Jacques Villeneuve, but bloody no. I know once upon a time he was a champion, 1997 Jerez. Props to him, but surely that doesn't warrant a commentator gig in perpetuity. Not in my humble opinion, at least. Get rid of Jacques Villeneuve, do you know what I mean? Isn't there anyone else that they could get? Mention no names. Any F1 content creator ever. Oh, and by the way, Helmut Marko said of Yuki Tsunoda that it is going to give him until Mexico Grand Prix to show us what he's got. Oh, the humanity. How bad is that? You saw the pictures of Yuki Tsunoda in the car after yet another underperforming qualifying session. He said last race weekend that once he got the equipment, once he got the proper updates and the new floor that Maximilian Verstappen has got, now he'll be able to keep it. Well, what now, Yuki Tsunoda? Let's talk a more action, sir. Surely you've got to do something. Christian Horner said it once upon a time, right, that Red Bull can't win any constructors championships or races only running on one leg. Well, Tsunoda san, it's your time. I know, we know it's difficult. We know it's super techie as far as the Oracle Red Bull racing circumstance, that the Red Bull is super techie to drive. Case in point of that was yesterday, the long corners, the medium / low speed ones. Max was struggling, ultimately managed to put it in P3 after a couple techie changes, and they were changing everything: ride height, suspension, aerodynamics, ballast, the lot. Ladies and gentlemen, F1 jury, it is techie, snap oversteer, but bloody Nora, Tsunoda-san, underperformance. If this chap goes another race at the Dutch Grand Prix without points, that's record-breaking settings as far as Red Bull Racing drivers' underperformance. I want to say that'll be his 8th race back-to-back where he scored no points. You think Helmut Marko is going to accept that? That, ladies and gentlemen of the F1 jury, is not good enough. Oh, and by the way, let's talk about the poll because it's techie this. I watched it back, I listened to it, and I was like, surely Lando's going to smash this. There's no way that they're going to take this away from Lando, particularly after his performance in FP3. 108.9 out of his AAA. It was bonkers. They say of the McLaren bods that the car, its gift is not just the fact that it's speed, it's accessibility to that pace. Now, we know season today that Lando struggled ever so slightly now with a couple different things. He accesses the upper echelons of his pace by dint of the steering feedback. He wants to know where the car is and what the car's doing through the steering wheel. And the car earlier on in the season didn't give him that. And that's why Lando was struggling. Not to mention the fact that he doesn't like understeer. He's an on-the-nose type guy, just like Max, just like Sir Lewis. And he didn't have that as far as this MCL 3.9. It was more understeery as versus last year's iteration of car. Now, however, tinkering with the suspension geometry, giving Lando Norris more feedback through the steering wheel. He has the car in its sweet spot, and all of a sudden he starts to win races. This is his momentum. But F1 aficionados around the world are starting to call into question the fact that Lando is lucky to be only 9 points adrift of his teammate in the drivers' standings by dint of Australia. British Grand Prix penalty, a harsh one as far as Oscar Piastri's very aggressive brake testing, inverting commas, behind the safety car. A couple of other different bits and bobs. Turn 6, Austria. Some say that Lando Norris is indeed lucky. Jolyon Palmer and Andrew Benson theorised, normalised for a couple bits and bobs the timing of the safety car in Miami. So too, similar Imola, normalised for a couple of those different eventualities. And Oscar Piastri could be anywhere up to 40 points down the road in the Drivers' Championship from Lando as versus 9. Now, Andrew Benson theorises that over the course of a 24 race season, normally if past his prologue in F1 history, the fortuitous circumstances tend to level outright. There's too many races. It's only a 2016 example where Sir Lewis Hamilton is unreliability for his championship campaign falls foul at the altar of fortuitous circumstances or lack thereof. But I think Benson's right. Normally it levels out, and I would contend, chat, that we saw a levelling out of it yesterday. I was watching the Ghost car. It's techie. Telling you, chat, this is chaos. I thought Oscar Piastri had nailed it, but he's not quicker around here, is he? It's Lando who's quicker. This is low minimum speed, longer duration turns. This is Lando Norris's house. That's why he's so good around Austria and Hungary and Zandvoort. And lo and behold, when you watch the Ghost car, chat, it's chaos. The Lando Norris gets the run on Oscar Piastri coming out of the final turn, but Mark Hughes theorises a couple different things. Oscar Piastri put it on pole and potentially has himself in pole position for the 25 points and race victory by dint of a couple different things. Oscar Piastri said in the post-quali press conference the following: that he wasn't looking to work on turn 9 and turn 10 where he had no hopes of keeping up with Lando. That's Lando Norris's territory, his house. Again, longer duration, medium, short, medium and low minimum speed turns. Get your words out, Cameron. We'll get there. That's Lando's territory, is now and always has been. Oscar said what he wasn't going to do there is fight him on his territory. What he was going to improve on is by going quicker in his turn, sector 1 settings, the high, medium, minimum speed stuff. That's Oscar Piastri's territory, and that's where he went quicker. But too important, I don't want to slander Lando, and I need to give him his dues. I feel like he was unlucky yesterday. Can we have an open and honest conversation here? I feel like he was really unlucky. Here's what happened. Coming out of the final turn, Lando Norris gets the run, but you know already that the Dutch Grand Prix Zandvoort is super wind affected. That coming into the home straight, Mark Hughes theorises that Lando Norris, his campaign for the pole, fell foul of two different things. In the first instance, wind, and in the second instance, Oscar Piastri, you can see in the distance, is getting a long distance to. Oh, the humanity. You see Lando pull ahead in the Ghost car coming out of the final turn, only for Oscar Piastri, by dint of the toe and wind, to overtake his teammate. I feel sad for Lando. I feel sad for Dustin. I'm not even going to be honest. It was a brilliant lap, and he looked like the cream of the crop, right? The fastest guy on track, as near as makes no difference, all race weekend. And then look, the racing gods do one of these and turn their backs on Lando Norris. But again, catch up a cruel, some may say. It was only a matter of time. Oh, and by the way, did you see Oscar and Lando at the post-quali press conference? It was like Lando had had enough. He started to talk about retirement. Have you seen this, chat? Chaos, saying that Nico Rosberg's approach might be the right approach. Maybe just win one and then go away. Listen to me. listen to me and take heed here. This is really important. Dana White of the UFC would always say, and again, it's a different sport, but it is analogous, I would think. Dana White, head honcho of the UFC, would always say of retirement, the second that you utter the "ruh" of retirement, just retire. If it enters your head, then you're already retired. You don't play F1 just like you don't play mixed martial arts, because there is the risk of serious injury and or unaliving oneself. If you're thinking about retirement, then you are already retired. And it sounds like Lando is speaking to that now, saying that, listen, I don't think, in inverted commas unsaid, I don't think necessarily that I'm going to be here for a long time. I'm here for a good time. Lando's saying that there is redeeming feature and value in what Nico Rosberg did back in 2016. What are we doing, chat? That's chaos. In the middle of a title fight, Lando, you're theorising about potentially retire. That is chaos. Do I not like that? D1, you're a legend. For the one that F's fancy the cool content. I appreciate you, D1. You're a legend. Listen, here's what I think about Lando. I think he was really unlucky yesterday. That's the truth. When you break down the components, the building blocks of the lap, he was quicker coming out of the final turn. He had up at turn 9, turn 10 was always going to be his. He was always going to be quicker in sector 3. But Oscar Piastri capitalised on the bits of the track that he is best at, quicker through his quick parts. But yet and still, check out the ghost car. You can see that Lando, coming off the final turn, has nailed it. But then all of a sudden, fortuitous circumstances fail him. But again, over the course of a season, these things are going to level out. I mean, he's won three of the last 4, hasn't he, Lando? And again, he has been a bit fluky. Some say it's going to get techie. Go on and let me tell you about this. What's Oscar saying? Oscar, okay, this is what Lando said specifically. And let me quote him because it's important here. It's sometimes good to go out, leave Formula One, F1 race, you're a legend, McLaren F1 race. It's sometimes good to go out, says Oscar Piastri, when you've won like Nico. He told Total Motorsport, just one championship. You don't need anymore. You achieved a little goal and go and live an amazing life. I don't know. I might not be here next year. You never know. What? I didn't read it before. I didn't understand the extent to which Lando Norris is talking about retire in the middle of a heated battle for the championship of the drivers' variety. What? Care? Help me make sense of this. Who else has done that? Now, I know Lando for the longest time. I don't want to kick a man when he's down because he was unlucky yesterday. That's the truth. He did everything that he needed to do to put that on pole. But again, the racing gods sometimes do one of these, right? Fortuitous circumstances, lack thereof, that he's been the benefactor of for the past 3-4 races. We've talked about that already. But yet and still, Lando, you may feel hard done by, sir, but this is the first time in the last 4 races. Hungary, as an example, you bottled the start as you tend to. And again, that forced your hand as far as the one-stopper. But a clean air one-stopper around Hungary is always going to be quicker than a dirty air, mention no name, Charles Leclerc, modern-day Jordan Lacey, a dirty air two-stopper, Oscar Piastri. That was his charge then. Now Lando's doing one of these. He's playing victim. What is that about, chat? I just can't. I can't get down with that he's going to retire, that he's going to do a Nico Rosberg. Not now, chap. All season long. Listen, let me tell you, this is important. Nico Rosberg keeps dropping your DMs, Lando, as to how you can cope, strengthen your mental fortitude with a view to steel yourself and fight as hard as possible for a championship in 2025. How does he know that? Because he did it in 2016, overcoming a not insubstantial natural talent deficit, the likes of which we've never ever seen before in terms of its quantum. He's dropping you messages saying, listen, I can help you, and you're not responding. Lando, listen, this is techie, mate. This is techie. And I say all that knowing that Lando should have dropped it on pole, all things being equal, because he was quicker. But now he's talking about retirement. What? What are we doing here? Oh, and by the way, let me tell you about Toto Wolff. In fact, let's talk about Tsunoda-san. Tsunoda-san, not good. I think he'll be gone by Mexico, you know. That's my honest truth. Now that Helmut Marko has said that he needs to prove himself by Mexico, that's your smart objective, isn't it? Now you have a timeline that we're working to. Tsunoda-san was in the car yesterday, again, under performance settings, doing one of these. It looked like he wanted to cry, and that hurts. I don't want to kick a man when he's down. Of course not. But that hurts. It has to hurt because Tsunoda-san is struggling yet again to wrap his head around the not insubstantial foibles, both technical, aerodynamic and mechanical, of that RB21. Maximilian Verstappen, by the way, in P3. Tsunoda-san in the lead up to the Dutch Grand Prix was talking all the good stuff, right? Saying that Helmut Marko failed to realise how different his setup was and how he didn't have any upgrades. Lauren Mekies was meant to come in and normalise for that. Give him the upgrades. Don't keep them for Max Verstappen's spare. Put them on Tsunoda-san's car. Well, what now, Tsunoda-san? You've got all the upgrades, and where are you, chap? It's not just that, young sir. It has to be more than that, because now underperforming is ensuing. Oh, and by the way, have you heard about, can you spell Toto, the boy who cried wolf? Can you say duplicitous? Can you spell snake? Again, the context is this. I don't want to labour the point as far as Toto, the boy who cried wolf, and his pursuit of Maximilian Verstappen to his signature, trying to get him in 2027. But here's the context. I've always said it. Toto will drop kick in the chest a King George Russell of Kings Lynn, Norfolk, or an Antonelli if it means that he can get so much as a whiff of the Maximilian Verstappen contract. How do you know? Well, because he's always been after it. Twice they had a conversation last year, once at the Miami Grand Prix and once over the summer break. It didn't transpire then. But do you think Toto's been giving up? No. Saying all the time to the contrary, that he doesn't want to flirt outside the relationship. But then why are you flirting, Toto? Why? Again, couple of race weekends ago, well, it would be disingenuous, it would be a fiduciary malfeasance of me as a director, as a CEO and 33% shareholder of Mercedes F1. It would be disingenuous of me, fiduciary malfeasance. I wouldn't be doing my job as a team principal if I didn't pursue Maximilian Verstappen, the best driver of the 20, Mount Rushmore of F1, first round Hall of Fame, to the nth degree. As Toto Wolff talking all the while, George Russell's in that car, one of the drivers of the year, looking at Toto like, what? What are you, how? What are you talking about? This is absolute nonsense. Give me the contract. I asked you for a multi-year deal and you wanted to give me a 1+1. The same contract, ironically, that you offered Sir Lewis, that ran him out the team because he wanted a multi-year. And now you want to offer me that same contract. The disrespect. Put some respect on George Russell's name. I don't even like George, but I respect him as a driver. He's been brilliant this year, for Pete's sake. So give that dude what he wants. But here's the problem, chat. If we're talking about George Russell and the circumstance he has affronted him, double dipping. You know that Toto Wolff already manages George Russell. George needs to fix for that. There is a conflict of interests. Surely, if you're negotiating with your management, what? You need to have a manager that's independent, surely, from your team and team principal and CEO. That makes no sense to me. George has to fix that now. He needs to go and sign with WME, any other company, CAA, any other company that looks after the interests of high sports or high profile sports athletes. What he can't be doing, can't be double dipping on negotiation. You're negotiating with your manager and your team principal. They're the same person. No, that doesn't make sense. Of course, your manager's gonna negotiate your contract in his own interest then, because he's your team principal, for Pete's sake. And how do you know that? Well, because Toto, the boy who cried wolf's been talking about Maximilian Verstappen and that circumstance, saying that he's got the upper hand. All that they need to do, so they were talking, the context of the conversation is this. Are you going to have the upper hand as far as car advantage next year? There's a lot of talk about the power unit, Toto, brand new rules and regs, 50% ICE, 50% electric. People are saying, people in the know, mention no names, James Allison, that the Mercedes, that the atmosphere around Brackley and Brixworth is that Mercedes have the upper hand, that they have the whip hand, that they've expedited for their power unit learning curve. That's the chatter. If indeed F1 rumour and speculation is something in which you can be invested. What do you say about that, Toto? Do you think you're going to have the whip hand, mate? Will you have the fastest car next year? And Toto said, hopefully it will be us. And then, not then we can win races because we've got the quickest car. Not then we can deliver upon the promises of 2021 et al. Not then we can nail constructors and drivers. No, he continues this way. And then I only need to pay 10% for Max Verstappen. What? That's all that this dude cares about, almost to a fault. Not winning necessarily, not victory and glory, not averting, no mitigating for the agony of defeat. He only cares about Max Verstappen. We need the power unit, an advantage in 2026. And then, quote, I only need pay 10% of the price for Max Verstappen. And that's exactly, he continues, what I told Raymond Vermeulen, Max Verstappen's manager. I think that for all of the best drivers, money is not the essential objective. Again, brackets unwritten. They only want to win. Can you imagine George Russell here, chat? George, get yourself some new management, chap. Your management can't be your team principal as well. It's double dipping. It's promotional malpractice. Sir, get yourself a CAA or a WM. It's somebody else. Do you know what I mean? An independent party that's not also your team principal, because you will never, so long as Toto Wolff is your manager and team principal, you will never get what you deserve, sir. And George Russell's come out and said that he needs to change some things, and he's aware of that. Of course he does, because Toto, at the altar, at the pinnacle of Toto Wolff's priorities, is signing Maximilian Verstappen. How do you know? Because again, he would drop kick in the chest George or Antonelli or anyone else if that meant he get a whiff of the signature of Maximilian Verstappen. You know that now more than ever. Oh, and by the way, because it gets techier than techie things always. Toto the boy who cried wolf's been talking about Christian, and I want to mention this. You guys have heard me say, or heard somebody say, that Christian Horner, I mean, F1 is a far worse sport, a more boring place for Christian Horner's absence, that we needed more villains, more people who shoot straight from the hip, a straight shooter, a thinking shooter, a team principal that added some blockbuster value to Formula One. Who said that? Who said that about Christian Horner? How very dare they say such nonsense about Christian Horner? Do you know what I mean? You've heard many people say that now. And now Toto, the boy who cried wolf, his arch enemy, his rival, has come out and said similar. Here's what he said, that I miss Christian Horner. Who have I got now as a nemesis? Do you know what I mean? That they were texting back and forth, Christian jousting, bantering Toto, saying, what are you going to do without me? I'm like the Joker to your Batman. What? Who am I? Your raison d'etre is to beat me. There is no reason for you to beat without me. And I think there's something to that. I think they need to get Christian Horner. I think there needs to be an incentive by Bernie Eccleston, whoever else, Stefano Domenicali, to get Christian Horner back on the grid. Can you imagine the comeback story? Alpine, Flavio Briatore, now an equity bod, not just a worker. Oh, the human, like write it in. Like sign me up straight away. Inject it into my veins. We need to make that happen, because all these buds, these team principals at the moment, really, really brilliant minds. Jonathan Wheatley with his eidetic memory, photographic settings, brilliant minds. Don't get it twisted, but boring as fudge. And you feel it now, because the season it feels like it's winding to its end. Do you know what I mean? Like I don't know, chat. I don't want to be too negative, but listening to my bloody radio commentary yesterday, it was all very like dour. Oh, no, I need some blockbuster personalities, do you know what I mean, to liven up the sport. It's not just about what happens on track now, because of Drive to Survive and the fight for attention dollars, and it's TikTok, and it's Facebook, and it's Twitter, and it's computer games, and there is 1,000 gazillion things that can very easily avert your gaze from F1, particularly when the sporting landscape isn't as level as it is now. You've got two buds fighting for the championship. Neither one of them have the marquee attraction of a Sir Lewis or a Maximilian Verstappen. Mention names 2021. It's techie, this. It's techie, and I don't want it to be like this, but it is. And that's when you need a Christian Horner to take some rogue SH1T, fix your fudging car. Exactly this. Do you know what I mean? Sound good for a cheeky soundbite. Getting back on the grid, I don't care. I don't care what you have to do, F1. This is a no-brainer here. Who is Cadillac's major sponsor? I have no idea. Space Ghost. Toto, you complete me. You complete me. Exactly like that. Dark Knight settings. Darth Flavio and Sith Apprentice Horner. They've got to make it happen. At least you get a sugar buzz off fudge. True, Stephen. Go on then. There's a couple of other things that I wanted to go through. So Toto, again, here's what Toto on his relationship. I'm dotting around here ever slightly. Toto's relationship, we'll talk about the Grand Prix in a minute. Toto did not, again, I've taken a couple of snippets. I'm going to read them out verbatim. Toto did not elaborate extensively on his good relationship with Max. Dutch Grand Prix. All Toto wants to talk about is Max. Tell me you want to sign. Tell me you will unalive someone to sign Maximilian Verstappen without telling me. When you're on the same wavelength, things go a bit more smoothly, says Toto Wolff about his relationship with Max Verstappen. And will the collaboration ever happen? Question mark. There's a 50% chance, but it has to fit on both sides. Again, as aforementioned, Toto's going hard to make sure that Mercedes have the whip hand as far as track advantage, lap time advantage, as at 2026, and then Max Verstappen signs himself right. Says that he'll sign himself 10%. He'll save big money. He'll pay 10% of what he'd have to pay this year. I'm telling you, Toto's up for this. But who goes, chat? You've heard George saying if anybody's going to leave Mercedes, it will be Kimi Antonelli. That's how much of a straight shooter, ruthless F1 peddler King George is. He's like, I'm not leaving Wolf of Wall Street. I'm not leaving. This is my team. I built this house. I've carried it on my back, notwithstanding its multitudinous foibles, both infrastructure, operational, and mechanical and aerodynamic. The W16's been a dog, and George Russell has been winning races. This makes no sense. Why disrespect that fella? Therefore, well, there is a reason why, and it has a name. Its name is Maximilian Verstappen. Oh, the humanity. It's going to get techie then, techie things. Go on then, just quickly before the race, and we'll be live 30 minutes before lights out, as always. I feel like, and again, this is, my crystal ball is as murky as the next person's, but I feel like the tension, okay, here's why I'm about to say this. The context is this. Watching the post-qualifying press conference, the dynamic between Oscar and Lando was loud. It wasn't beef, it was subtle. But seeing them sat alongside each other, and Oscar now interacting more with Max, Lando's best buddy, was loud. They talked about a couple of different things. One of the journos started asking quiz questions. The very first Dutch Grand Prix, who was the winner, who was on pole at Oscar. Lando was asked to chip in, and he says, "No, I don't want to." Oscar Piastri and Maximilian Verstappen continue to banter as if it's them, those two, who are best friends. You can see Lando doing one of these. I wouldn't be surprised if that was the source of all of his discontent. Normally, it's him having the banter with Maximilian Verstappen. He would have Max banter with anybody apart from his teammate. Max and Oscar now going back and forth. Lando, a man who has feelings as his North Star. Feelings and emotions are everything that he needs to manage for. Now has his busy mate Max Verstappen conducting his activities with the leader in the driver's standings. I think that's too much to bear for Lando Norris. Now you might say this is a nothing burger, Max Glazing, says McLaren former. This might be something of a nothing burger, but I think it counts. Countenance has to mean something. Personality is also a huge thing, and Russell falls short in that respect compared to Max. Then I'll leave skill out. Outlaw. I don't think Toto cares, mate. I don't think Toto cares. I think he'll happily put George and Max in that car. I think they see the upside as far as the dynamic and the fireworks and 1989 McLaren and Senna. There is something to be said from putting two fire-breathing dragons in the same car as far as its blockbuster appeal more broadly, not just to die-hard F1 fans, but to non-F1 fans as well. No, but in the event that Max actually goes to Merc, Toto won't go for two Alphas. George will probably be dropped. Does he have it confirmed? 1+, once they're working on it now. Remco. Announcement pending. It's coming in. Jazz cigarettes. Go on then. I think something's happening between the McLaren drivers, and that leads me to this conclusion. Never ever. So they collided in Canada, but all was UNICEF. It was all very PR and united front, right? They were all ultimately singing from the same hymn sheet because Lando up front apologised. I think this is closer to being 2016 Nico and Lewis than ever before. I think Lando's had enough, and he realises now that he's going to have to do something different if he's going to if he has a chance, if he's to stand a chance of overcoming OJP for the championship. OJP's operating at a level now. Now he's getting fortuitous circumstances. Lando did everything he needed to do to put it on pole. He was fastest out of the final turn, but per the ghost cam, you see Oscar Piastri benefit from a cheeky change in wind at the wrong time for Lando and a distant toe. Techier than techie things, but again, these things tend to level themselves out over the course of a championship. OJP, and you think OJP is a fire-breathing dragon, by the way, is going to bottle the start? I do not think so, Max, Stephen. I think at the end of this race, Oscar Piastri goes into the next round, round 16 of the championship, Monza, the Italian Grand Prix, with a 9 + 7, 16-point delta. I think he might run away with this, chap. We talked about this before, Ray. This is more Alonso Hamilton. It's a good shout, Issa. It is a good shout. It's going to get techie, I'm telling you. In a couple of hours' time, we'll see how they work into turn one. But what's Lando got to lose now? What has he got to lose? He's got to go through all of this consistency stuff. By the way, that Oscar Piastri keeps talking about consistency. You remember the other day? Let me play this very quickly as we round third base. Do my due diligence. All I keep hearing from Oscar Piastri, as if somebody's been in his ear, mention no names, Mark Webber. All I keep hearing about is two things: pace and consistency. Here's what he said. I'm going to play this thing. I didn't load it up, but this is quite important. Here's an interview with Rosanna Tennant on the F1 Checkered Flag podcast. Here's what Oscar Piastri had to say. And again, remind me if he mentions consistency and pace.
I would say last year, have you actually been purposefully working on those worst tracks this year? Because it seems like they're all coming good for you in 2025.
Yes and no. I mean, I think it's largely coincidence that the worst tracks last year have been better this year, and there's been very different reasons for that. I would say. I think here, the story of this weekend was similar to the last two. In that, the last two, there's been moments where I was strong, but not really always that consistent, and not when I needed to be consistent. Whereas this weekend, I've been a bit more consistent when I needed to, and that's really been the difference here. So, I think it's more just a coincidence, and there's still a long race tomorrow.
Well, good luck tomorrow, because actually Lando said his biggest chance to win tomorrow was today. So if that helps your mind games, voila.
Consistent. That's the name of the game when it comes to Oscar Piastri, and not just consistency for consistency's sake. Consistently quick. Again, I think Oscar Piastri has all the minerals requisite to mount himself a very serious title challenge. 25 points over or under by the end of this season. I reckon over as far as Oscar Piastri's lead in the championship. I'll see you in a couple of hours for Lights Out. 30 minutes before we'll be starting the stream. It's going to get techie later on. Dutch Grand Prix, round 14. Between now and then, the prosecution rests. No further questions, Your Honour.